Hello. This is the first in a series of videos devoted to the Comic Journal's top 100 comics of the 20th century, covered in this issue of the Comics Journal, issue number 210, February 1999. This year has been the 25th anniversary of that list. Within a couple months, we'll be at the 26th anniversary. And I'm going to, in each video, take a look at 10 entries from the list, counting down to number 1. If you're interested in the final list, you can find it online pretty easily. But there wasn't a lot of information out there about the issue itself. Mostly you'll find maybe Reddit pages or some message board stuff. This list was very formative to me. I would have been 21, maybe 21 going on 22 when the list came out. And it blew my mind. I thought I knew comics pretty well at the ripe old age of 21, and clearly I was mistaken. There was tons of stuff on here that I either didn't know about at all or barely knew about, and a shit ton of stuff I just hadn't read at all. Maybe I'd seen a page or something here and there in a book, but nothing like big chunks of the material. So anyway, I'm going to show off the top 10, or the bottom 10 actually, 100 through 91 from the list. And this sitting right here is the newest issue of my Zen Canon that I make with my friend Alex Eklund. Normally, I have a whole bunch of other friends and contributors who submit articles, and we put together a whole package. This thing was done just by Alex and I. I interviewed everyone who contributed to this original issue, who is still with us. There were 8 men who made the list. 5 are still alive. So Gary Groth, Bart Beatty, Charles Hatfield, Ray Mescalado, Robert Boyd, who all used to write for the Journal. Tom Spurgeon, the editor of this issue, and who ran Comics Reporter for years, passed away. Kim Thompson, the co-owner of Fantagraphics Books, has passed away. And R.C. Harvey, a longtime critic and sometime cartoonist, also has passed away. So I was unable to speak to them, unfortunately. I also spoke to Seth about his beautiful cover for this issue. Eric Reynolds, the associate publisher at Fantagraphics, whose list was not included, though he did make one. He was the PR guy at Fanta at the time, and they decided not to use his. And I basically take as many looks at this issue as I can. And maybe in other videos I'll show off this issue a bit more. It's a hefty, as you can see. Clocks in at 124 pages. Beautiful color cover by Noah Van Sciver as an homage to Seth's original cover. And yeah, we go in depth. I include some of the individual list makers' individual lists. I didn't have all of them, but I included the ones I did have. There's a chat between Alex and I where we discuss everything on the original list and our reactions to it. And yeah, just articles about what the cartoonists on this list have done since, the cartoonists who have passed away, the availability of all the titles on the list, what's remarkable is that there was so much of this work back in 99 that was not available. And the vast majority has been made available again in some form in the last 25 years. I'm not saying the list deserves all the credit for that, but I'm sure it helped. And Fantagraphics, who published the Comics Journal, has gone on to release a ton of the stuff that was on this list that they had not published beforehand. Bringing old strips like Crazy Cat back, doing the Complete Peanuts, Pogo, etc. So anyway, somewhat a commercial for my magazine here. If you're interested, canonzine.bigcartel.com. I'll try to remember to put a link in the description. You can find the other previous issues of Canon there. This is the Canon Annual 2024. I know 2024 is about done, but at least this got sent out to people before 2024 was over. The people who pre-ordered. It's not perfect, but we're proud of it. So without further ado, I'm going to jump into the top 100. And coming in at number 100 is Prince Valiant by Hal Foster. He did this from 1937 to 1971. Pretty long run. Prince Valiant is mainly known for its beauty, and these Fantagraphics editions are great presentations of this art. Nice big pages, beautiful colors. Yeah, I don't have a lot to say about Prince Valiant. I think it's gorgeous. It's a little more fun to read than you'd expect, but still kind of dry and stiff. But yeah, just gorgeous artwork by Harold Foster. Really good stuff. This particular volume, 1967 and 1968, so he's coming up near the end of his solo run on the strip. Yeah, very good stuff. At number 99, The Bungle Family by Harry J. Tuthill. Great pull quote on the top here. One of the darkest visions of American life this side of Nathaniel West. The strip was also a favorite of Robert Crumb. In this same issue of the Journal, the number 210, they ask a few cartoonists to name some of their favorite comics. Crumb includes it in his list, which is not a very long list. So it's an early strip. He worked on the strip from 24 to 45, so 21 years. You can see these early strips, pretty talky. This collection is 1930. These are all the dailies, 1930. But it's a domestic strip. Love the textures here in this art. But yeah, it's wordy. It's very verbal, but really fun stuff. Nice cartooning, not mind-blowing cartooning, but the real strength is in the characters and the writing. Not a lot of collections of this stuff, unfortunately. This is from the Library of American Comics Essentials, where they would collect 1 year of certain strips, and the Bungle family thankfully got one of those. Some of these strips that aren't well known, it's hard to imagine them getting more comprehensive collections. Though it would be nice to maybe have a best of some of these well-regarded strips. At number 98, Barney Google by Billy DeBeck. This is another one of those Essentials collections. This one's from 1928. Barney Google would eventually share co-billing with Snuffy Smith, and then Snuffy Smith would take over the strip completely. So if you're, my age or within a couple decades of me, you probably were familiar with Snuffy Smith in the newspaper. It was a hillbilly strip. But these Barney Google strips are really great, really fun. Cartooning is really, I'm just saying really a lot, aren't I? But yeah, the cartooning is just very of its time for sure, but has a real charm and vitality to it. And as you can see, you know, that's not quite as verbose as some of the Bungle family. Not to say it doesn't have a lot of words, but yeah, the drawings get a little bit more attention here. But great slapstick cartooning. And Barney Google is massive in its time, even though at this point it's, you know, kind of lost to history for a lot of people. But inspired a hit song. Yeah, fun strip. Another one that there aren't tons of collections. I think I have one other Craig Yo book that was put out of this stuff, and that's it. So not easy to find this stuff, unfortunately. At number 97, The Hannah Story by Carol Tyler. So this is Drawn and Quarterly. I believe it's volume 2, number 1. So Drawn and Quarterly, the company, was originally Drawn and Quarterly, the anthology. There were 3 volumes of that anthology. This is volume 2. Beautifully produced work. I mean, this issue has, here's Tardee, Maurice Vellicoupe, and here we get to Carol Tyler. So this is a short story, and they do this a few times on the list. They have very short stories. This might be the shortest one in the entire list. Carol Tyler, this may have been the first time she was published in color that I can recall, outside of covers or something. I might be wrong about that, but it's hard for me to think of something prior to this. Very subtle color use in this, really just highlights. She kind of has this orange brown color, some greens that she's sort of putting. Oh, I lost it. Okay. So, very beautiful artwork. Carol Tyler is just a tremendous cartoonist. This is a story about an older sister that Carol Tyler had that she did not know about. And just horribly sad. She lost her life. But she turns it into a beautiful story. Very well done. You can see the colors get very vibrant there at the end. I don't know if this story's ever been collected. I looked around trying to find out if it had been put anywhere, and I don't think so. So if anyone knows if maybe it's appeared in another anthology somewhere that I'm not aware of, but I don't think it's appeared in any of Carol Tyler's books. But I don't think these go for a mint if you're worth checking out. These old Drawn and Curly anthologies are all sort of just excellent, beautiful work. At number 96, Dirty Plot by Julie Doucette. I'll just pull one of the books out here. The slipcase that was put out by Drawn and Quarterly a few years ago. Collects the whole run of Dirty Plot, which was originally a mini comic, and then it was published as a one-woman anthology by Drawn and Quarterly. I believe Dirty Plot number 1 was their first comic outside of their anthology, followed quickly by Palookaville by Seth. So if you're not familiar with Julie Doucette's work, it's a little hard to describe. She does a lot of autobio, but I don't think exclusively. I think the cartooning's excellent. Here she is kind of working in almost Gary Panter style. But yeah, really rigorous work. You know, in my mind's eye, her work was a lot scratchier and more and rough. And she does have a looseness to her work, but um, it is not a lack of craft at all. Just incredible craft. She's also very funny, and a really good writer of autobio, which isn't always easy to do. So, this is the easiest way to read Dirty Plot. Obviously, you get it all in one shot. I believe this set is still in print, but it is a little pricey, obviously. So I think, you know, the old issues probably, I mean, you'd have to find them online, I'm sure, but I don't think they would set you back a fortune. But she's worth checking out. I think she's one of the best 90s cartoonists. And yeah, these are very satisfying reads. Very fun stuff. At number 95, Los Tejanos by Jack Jackson. Los Tejanos was published by Fantagraphics, I think in 82. One of their very early publications. And it, like most of Jack Jackson's later work, is concerns Texan history. I love Jack Jackson's work, all of it, but I love the Texas history stuff the most. You can just see how incredible his art is. It's hard to see here, but I'll try to zoom in a little bit. He's just getting amazing textures here. Every panel is just labored over. And really reminds me of Crumb, not so much in his figure work at all, but just in the amount of labor he's putting into every panel, every page. Crumb in this period was doing the same thing in the Pages of Weirdo. He'll show up later on the list. But anyway, Jack Jackson, incredible. Los Tejanos, very good book. I mean, frankly, they could have chosen one of several of his books. But highly recommend anything by him. He's criminally underappreciated. And the further away we get from his life, I fear he'll become more and more forgotten. This volume from Fantagraphics collects Los Tejanos and Lost Cause. This is supposed to be kind of a volume one of Jack Jackson's American history. It's now the only volume. I don't know if we'll ever see another one or not. I can't imagine it sold well at all. But I would love to see the rest of his work collected in nice editions. It's really great stuff. At number 94, The Humor Comics of Basil Wolverton. This is a catch-all for kind of his humor work in general. I grabbed a trade paperback of Powerhouse Pepper, which is one of the few Wolverton books available at the time the list was made. This was published by Fantagraphics, probably in the early 90s. 94. But of course the work inside of it is from the 40s and 50s. He's just a funny cartoonist, and I mean, he's a great cartoonist. His artwork is incredible, and if you've ever seen his science fiction work or his illustrations of the Bible, you'll know he could draw his ass off. But he was a wonderful humor cartoonist. Look at these just thick, smooth lines. Barely look like they were touched by human hands. I mean, they're just so clean and crisp. And what really is fun about these comics are the wordplay, the puns. He's always got little stuff going on in the backgrounds, little signs everywhere. Really fun stuff. This is just a great little book. I mean, this is out of print a million years ago, but I can't imagine it goes for a fortune. But I would love to see a new edition of it. Anyway, wonderful stuff. Yeah, really nice. This is a nice book, too. But highly recommend Basil Wolverton. I love all of his work. I love the science fiction stuff. I love the Bible stuff. It's all great. Number 93, Hank Ketcham's Dennis the Menace, which he worked on from 1951 to 1994. Most people, I would imagine, that are above the age of 35, anyone who may have actually picked up a daily newspaper at some point in their life, probably familiar with Dennis the Menace. It was pretty ubiquitous once upon a time. A great one-panel strip. These collections are also from Fantagraphics. This is 1961 and 1962. Very cool little format, just block, and each page has one strip. And it really shows off Hank Ketcham's wonderful artwork, which I think was underrated. I think people just thought it was kind of a loose, tossed off strip. Certainly when you're seeing it in the newspaper, you're not getting the highest fidelity reproductions. But these look great, and you can see that these casual lines, there's nothing casual about them. He has a real economy to what he's doing. Everything is in the right spot. And these early strips especially are actually pretty funny. And Dennis is a lot more of a menace back then than he would be later, where he was just sort of a mischievous kid. But yeah, these are beautiful strips. In a way, kind of a parallel portrait of 1950s suburban living, besides Peanuts. He's definitely going for the gag. There's got to be something every day that is funny, whereas Peanuts, of course, didn't rely on that as much. A little more psychological, a little more emotional. But these are pretty funny, pretty good stuff. At number 92, Pictopia by Alan Moore, Don Simpson. That's the writer and artist. And there's 3 other names here credited. Mike Kazella, Pete Poplaski, and Eric Vincent, who I think maybe worked on coloring. Not sure who did what. This story originally appeared in an anthology published by Fantagraphics called Anything Goes, which was a mini-series. I think it was a 6-issue mini-series put out. Tons of people contributed work to it, and it was to help Fantagraphics with their legal bills during one of their several lawsuits. And some really, if you ever come across any of those issues of Anything Goes, grab them. They're full of great cartoonists. There's just a lot of amazing people appear in those things. Pictopia seems to have been a standout in a lot of people's minds. Clearly, it made the top 100 list. This edition was released by Fantagraphics a few years ago in a nice big format that really shows off the art. It's not a very long story. Let's see how many pages we're looking at here. Has some extra matter in the back. Yeah, 13 pages. So very short, but very clever. It's real sort of peak Alan Moore deconstructionist, but he's not just dealing with superheroes. He's dealing with all of comics. But of course, the newer, darker superheroes are the real concern, as they are edging into and pushing out all of the other kinds of comics. It's a fun story. I'm a little surprised it made the list, to be honest, but I've always really liked the story, and it was very cool that this got published a few years ago. I believe there's a reprint of this coming in the near future. Worth checking out. Does not have Alan Moore's name on it. He did not want his name to be used. But that's his prerogative. At number 91, another Alan Moore comic that you may have heard of, Watchmen, by Alan Moore and Dave Gibbons. Colors, I believe, by John Higgins. So it's really a three-man operation. Anyway, don't really know what to say about Watchmen. I can't imagine anyone watching a comics video on YouTube wouldn't be familiar with this book, no matter what your interests are. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend reading it. I think it's a great work. It's criminally underrated, being at 91 on the list, but the Comics Journal definitely had a love-hate relationship with this book. I think it was respected by the editors and writers, but at the same time, maybe they felt the need to kind of put it in its place. I don't know. I still think Watchmen is a masterpiece. Don't mind saying it. I think it's a great work. I don't think it's Alan Moore's best book, but I think it's a pretty magnificent book. Probably my favorite Alan Moore story, personally. I think Dave Gibbons is just spot on in this thing. The best work he's ever done in his life. And that takes us through the first 10 on the top 100. So, once again, I will be doing a few more of these videos. 9 more, to be exact. If you want to read more about the top 100, canonzine.bigcartel.com. You can find my Canon Annual. And we'll be discussing this one in future videos. And I'll leave you with that. Thanks.